What's up, everybody? It is me, Callus, and I'm back, and Callus Crew Challenge is back as well in full swing, and it is bigger than ever. Instead of 16 teams, we have upgraded, we have doubled to 32 teams, which is 96 players since they are teams of 3. That is larger than half of SPL. It is a big tour, the biggest money tour that I've ever hosted, and there are a lot of matches in round 1. I won't be able to cover all of them because that's just an unreasonable ask to narrate that amount of games in a week for one guy. I'm also not the right person to be narrating Fairy Gens, but I'm going to pick and choose some of the highlights and some of the exciting matches, and there really are a lot to choose from. Going to be doing a lot of games today. This is going to be a big upload day, and we're going to be bouncing all over the place. We're going to cover several different tiers today, and we, of course, I made a point to start, even though this wasn't the first game chronologically, we are, of course, going to start with my bread and butter and start with some Gen 3. So on one side here, we have Deezcastforms. He's on team 2 balls and a bong, with Amir and with Cherry Bong. Maybe not the most well-known team, but certainly a group of grinders and up-and-comers. You may or may not be familiar with him. I've known him for a little while, not super long. I had him on my Mushi League team that we did win the league with in Season 11. And he's a ladder grinder, and he plays seasonal and those kinds of tours, but he hasn't quite broken through yet. But I gotta tell you, this guy does not lack confidence whatsoever. He genuinely believes that he belongs right up there with those top guys, and he can play at that level. This would be a great opportunity to prove it. He's against Arctic, who is a guy who was in Deezcastforms shoes not all that long ago, but Arctic has absolutely broken through and is a known commodity at this point. He was in Callus Invitational Play-ins and then Callus Invitational Main Event. He's now an SPL starter, and I think he's only like 15 legit in real life, so he's going to be around as long as he wants to be if he decides to stick with the game. So this is a real test. If Deez can beat Arctic, who, like I said, is really a hot commodity right now, I think that's going to get a lot of people's attention, and who knows where it goes from there. Alright, let's get into it. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of games today. Can't talk through all of them, but real quick, this tour, donations. Doing it a little bit differently this year. It's via donation link rather than directly sending it to me via PayPal, but we really need them. Our prize pool is not quite as high as I would want it to be for this tour, though there is, of course, still plenty of time. So if you enjoy this tour, this video, and all these upcoming videos, and you're able to support the tour in any way, $5, $10, whatever you can do, it's super duper appreciated, really makes a difference, and it makes it so I keep doing these money tours such as Callus Crew Challenge and Callus Invitational 7, question mark. Alright, that's really it. Intro's gone. Here we go. Game 1 in a best of 3, Gen 3, Deezcastforms and Arctic. So, it's going to be Deez on the bottom and Arctic on the top. We've got a T-Tar, which is going to surprisingly scare out Skarmory. I think a lot of the time you stay there. I guess he really didn't want to eat a Fire Blast or Flamethrower, which may or may not even have been there because, I mean, who knows? It doesn't have to be a special tar. That was pretty conservative for Arctic. I think a lot of people would spike there, but as it turns out, there is a Magneton in the back, so Arctic has not gotten his Skarm eaten in one way or another. Will-O-Wisp is going to miss for Arctic, and now spikes are going to come down for the Skarm. And Celebi, pretty uncommon these days, actually had Light Screen. But yeah, I mean, if Tar is switching into Gar, then obviously it's going to be special. So he does show Pursuit and get him. Weirdly, though, that Earthquake, I don't know if that's a bad roll or what, but it's going to come up just short at 81%, leaving him at 1%. Which allows the retaliation Ice Beam, and it means that Arctic loses his Doug. So that actually could matter, because if the Doug had been alive, which I think a lot of the time with a better damage roll it would be, then later in the game, it would be able to eat at least the Magneton, and very possibly the Celebi as well. But that's not going to happen anymore, and maybe the Celebi is now really obnoxious for Arctic's team to remove. Now, he does have an Ice Beam Coon, which obviously threatens the Bee. But this is like, as much of a Coon counter B as you're going to get. You've got Light Screen, Leech Seed, Recover, and the last move I would assume is HP Grass, so that's about as anti-Coon as it gets as far as Celebi sets are concerned. So he can keep it in check, but the issue, since you don't actually kill the Coon without crits, since the Coon's calm minding and you're not, the issue just becomes PP, specifically the PP of Leech Seed. There's 16 to begin with, pressure makes it count as 2, when you fling it at Coon, that's only 8 uses, which feels like a lot, but if the game goes long, which it looks like it very well may, then it actually starts to matter. Full team is shown for Arctic, and it's quite stally, and he is a player who, I mean, I don't want to classify him as one-dimensional, like he can only do this, but my observation of Arctic throughout CI and in other games has been that he very consistently leans towards these very bulky, very stally teams. That's just where he's comfortable. I don't necessarily love his style. I don't necessarily think it's the most effective way to play the tier, but his results speak for themselves. On the other hand, Deezcastforms, the last poke on this team back in the day when it originally came out, BKC team, it was an Aerodactyl. I've seen more modern versions, as we saw in CI6, in which multiple people had last poke Flygon. It's also possible that it could be something like a Salamence or a Moltres in this spot. If I had to speculate, it's probably just Aero, the old school, but any of the above. The point being that these teams actually have very few ways to win. For Deez, he's going to be relying on the one-layer spikes that he has down, and who knows how long he keeps them down. We know there's a Claydol on the other side, and there's no way it's Last Poke Gengar for Deez, so certainly those spikes can be spun away. And then on the flip side of things, even if it is Last Poke Arrow, it's basically his only win con, and then for Arctic, you get the Coon, and that's, I mean, I guess kind of sort of Gengar more than Zero. Gengar is not a win con in the traditional sense. There's certainly squads, generally squads that are more aggressive than this, in which Gengar can semi-reliably act as a cleaner, or at least be like a backup win con, but Gengar's never a primary win con, or at least it shouldn't be. And in this case, with it being Garctic, as we dubbed it during Kalos Invitational when he debuted this set, the Will-O-Wisp Rest Curse set, which is not a thing, in its last move, Mean Look, I believe. But yeah, that's not really a win con either if he's not flinging T-Bolts and Ice Punches and such at you. So basically, and there is the Mean Look, so it's last move either Curse or Protect or Sub, whatever you wanted to do with it. I think it was Curse in the CI version, but I don't think he had Will-O-Wisp in the CI version, so maybe he messed with it. But either way, Celebi's trapped, and the only thing he could do back is Leech Seed and HP Grass, which you can see how good that is. It's a full bulk Gengar, max HP, loads and loads and loads of special defense. Those HP Grasses with the resistance are doing 10%. So with Leech Seed and HP Grass, he is not even close to being able to kill Gengar here. I might speed this up and put it on hyper fast till we get through this sequence, because Gengar's not exactly killing Celebi quickly either, between the Leech Seed recovery, lefties, and of course recover. So this might take a hot minute. Gengar should eventually win this transaction, but slow and boring. Let me go ahead and go to hyper fast just until this part plays out. Deezcastforms commenting multiple times in the comments that there we go. Let me go back to fast. But he mentioned multiple times that he had never seen that set before, so shows me that someone was not paying attention to Kalos Invitational 6, therefore obviously would not want to be invited to CI7. Can't be bothered to pay attention. There's a Toxic on the Claydol, which, okay, he's only shown spin, but I think the doll might have rest, and I think it might be Aroma Bliss, assuming, yeah, it is Aroma Bliss, assuming that this is the same or very close to the same as the team that he used in Callus Invitational. And Scarm hasn't shown anything, but I think it might be rest Scarm as well. It's certainly going to have spikes, obviously, but we don't know beyond that. So this may be a grind. Arctic has not managed to get a layer of spikes down, which Deez could not remove if he did get one down. However, the Magneton is still there trying to eat him up, so if he does get a layer down, he'll probably die for doing so. Critical hits obviously can break through eventually, and well, there's Blissey getting a critical hit on Celebi and speeding up, which is already a lengthy 70 turn game, and not really that close to done. Like I said, the problem with both of these teams is that they have very limited win cons. On paper, it might not look like that. If it were a physical tar, a DD tar, something like that, a sub tar, maybe that can move progress along, but nope, it's just a pursuit tar. And then same thing, you see the Celebi, oh, what if it's Combine Celebi, CM Pass, or Super Celebi, or whatever. It's neither of those things either, so the only real thing that moves it forward, it's not even an off-pert, it's just the Aerodactyl. So he's relying on spikes and Aerodactyl almost solely. And it's the same issue on the other side. It's the Gengar trapping stuff, the Dugtrio trapping stuff, which are pretty passive win cons, and then obviously the CM Coon. But neither team particularly aggressive. These are pretty bulky. I mean, do nothing is maybe too strong, kind of harsh, but like borderline do nothing squads. And when you get two of those facing off against each other, you get what we have here. You get 84 turns and counting of pure adrenaline rush ADV content to promote CCC2. Wow and Pump with a miss there. Wow connected there. It's also exciting. I just can't do it right. Coon coming in. Magneton does not fodder itself. Goes down to 1. I mean, you could T-Volt here, but there's nothing preventing the very healthy Blissey from coming in. Which he does predict, by the way. Gets Toxic off on her. Good prediction for Arctic. Yeah, that's going to do it. Deez must have known. I mean, he must have felt like he was behind, which he was. And he tried to make a play there. He tried to sneak Arrow in on, I guess, a switch or an aromatherapy. Or a soft boil. Yeah, I don't know what he was trying to get it in on there, but Arctic simply made the aggressive play, didn't allow the switch in. He S-tossed it and got it there, obviously hoping for anything other than an attack. And the moment that Arctic called him out on it, he just packed it in. So not the most exciting game of ADV I've ever seen. Kind of stally, kind of grindy. I'm glad I did this one on fast. But it is going to be an Arctic victory in Game 1. He is on, I should have mentioned this earlier, he's on Team Timezone Warriors with Keenix and with Sky Penguin. And he's looking to put up a W for them. This is the first match in real time that played out in that series. So 0-0 score at the moment. And we will go over to Game 2, which I'm going to do on normal speed because I don't think it's 90 turns. Here we go. Deez on the bottom, Arctic on the top, Salamence and Tar respectively. These leads, as you guys know if you're watching this channel, they both threaten each other, whether it's CB Brick Break, whether it is Rock Slide from the Tar, Ice Beam from the Tar, whatever it may be. It's hard when you don't know the set of either Mon, and very often they both puss out and switch, which is what happened in this instance. Leech Seed, Drill Peck respectively. That is a very attack-invested Zapdos. Hell, it might even be max attack to be doing that amount with Drill Peck. And they're both going to switch, which Arctic is going to get the better end of. He's got Meta, which counter would be very punishing here, but that's not what it is. It's going to be Earthquake from the Lax. Mash may or may not kill. Awkward damage roll here, but D's not willing to chance it. And Arctic didn't actually go for it. He went for Protect as Gyarados came in. Goes to his own meta and winds up against Gar, which again is dangerous. If it's Lum meta, if it's Psychic meta, that's really bad. But if it's pure physical without Lum and he gets Will-O-Wisp, that's really bad. So they threaten each other. But Arctic is not comfortable with it. He goes to Zapdos and gets an immediate crit. But Deezcastforms, backed by his attack raise, is going to get the kill on Zapdos as well. puts Deez in the lead 6-5 as Magneton comes in as the Gengar switch in. Team seems very vulnerable to Gar for Deezcastforms. And that's a great turn for Deez. Arctic is going to get his Jolteon, which obviously is not the most sturdy Pokemon. A Mon that very much relies on its speed. Going to get that hit with a T-Wave. Cloyster going to get at least a layer down. And one layer is going to be it, because Self-Destruct is going to get him. Arctic not able to call that out and go to Gar, which would have been an amazing play, but I don't blame him. It's very hard to not spike there. I certainly would have spiked up, so can't fault him. Leaves us in a 4-5 situation. D is still up 1. Leech Seed miss is real dangerous. Yup. Mash and attack raise. Magneton gonna be the follow-up. He might have had sub to try to go for a sub-seed lock had he connected with that Leech Seed, but we know that he missed. As such, he's going to have to settle for a big Thunderbolt on the way out, and he's going to be super-duper killed by the boosted 4x weak Earthquake. And Gyarados here, faster of course, going to get him with a follow-up to even us up at 3 a pop. But Gengar remains an issue here. Thunderbolt says no more Gyra. This better be a pretty damn bulky Mence, or the Gyara doesn't have Ice Punch. He does have Ice Punch. But as it turns out, it is a bulky Salamence. He's going to survive that comfortably, even with the sand. Now can he get him? He goes for the flinch. He thinks HP flying won't be enough. He might be EV to survive HP flying. But he's right that he does need to go for the flinch, and he gets it. Jolteon's useless here, because remember, it would just die to the Earthquake. It has no chance of being faster because of the T-Wave. So it's just a matter of can the Tar survive? And now the question is simply who's faster. And Deezcastform gets both answers that he's looking for here. And the power going to come back to bite him, because obviously Jolteon normally could just click Thunderbolt here and make Meta go away. But having been hit with that T-Wave earlier in the game, Meta's faster. Earthquake gets him from 100%. And that is going to send us to a Game 3 as Deezcastforms takes down Arctic in a close one. So we'll move over to the third game, and this is going to put a match win on the board for either 2 balls and a bong, that's Deez's team, or Timezone Warriors, that is Arctic's team. Here we go. Deez on the bottom for the third and final time, and Arctic on the top for the third and final time. It's the same leads as game 1, but it's different plays. It's Fire Blast and Stay, respectively, to go for the spike, and of note, the Fire Blast lands a burn. He's going to follow up with another and get him, and Arctic now is going to follow up with Dugtrio, which is either Adamant or it's a weirdly EV'd Tar, but I'm going to assume it's Adamant for Arctic. And we've got ourselves a quick trade-off there to bring us to 5-5. Will-O-Wisp with a burn, and Gengar going to eat Psychic there. Awkward damage roll, may or may not live another. Giga Drain would keep it, so he definitely lives another pending crit. But Arctic does not have Giga Drain, or he definitely would have clicked it there. Starmie comes in to threaten the doll, so now if he tries to spin, it's going to either hurt or kill him. It's Surf rather than Hydro Pump, so he probably could have lived that, but still, obviously you don't want to take that hit. And here comes Pert. Shadow Ball, thinking maybe Gengar is going to sneak in for Arctic, anticipating Self-Destruct, but he just gets a Pert. And that is a Whiffed Protect for Arctic, as Charizard sneaks in for Deez. Charizard, of course, often carries HP Grass, and that's what's going to happen here. Man, Arctic does not have a fantastic Charizard switch at all. And that, I don't know about that play. I would have gotten out of there if I were Deez. Maybe he doesn't have a great Starmie switch now that his Lax is banged up, but Charizard seems like it can just win him the game on its own. I super disagree with that. I super disagree with letting the Charizard go for Deezcastforms. What's the switch in for Arctic? Fire Tech fries Gengar or Dugtrio. HP Grass dunks on Swampert. I don't know what he's thinking the last poke is, but I would not have let the Charizard go there. No way. I mean, granted, the one counter argument, like I said, is that it seems that Gengar, for the second game in a row, mind you, is a poke that Deez's team does not deal with very well either. So, like, maybe he's viewing it as a race. He's viewing it as a back and forth. But I don't know, man. I don't think I would have let Charizard go, especially if it's Focus Punch Charizard that could have really dunked on that Bliss. But that's the other thing. We don't know the set. Maybe it was Beat Up Zard, and Beat Up's not that exciting because two things were already down. I'm not like 1,000,000% ready to jump down his throat without knowing the set, but I don't know. It felt wrong at the time. I don't know that I would have let Zard go in Deez's shoes, but regardless, he's between a rock and a hard place now. It's 4 pokes against 2. Meta's gonna have to get there. Don't know if he's gonna mash and go for crit attack raise, or if he's gonna. I guess we're going for earthquake crits now. I don't like this earthquake at all. You got to mash there and land the raise for this exact reason. If you got the attack raise, you're fine, but now that you just killed the dog without giving yourself a chance of a raise, the Swampert is totally out of range. And it's healing itself up pretty good. It's at 49 after these lefties. Mixed Men's here is something of a threat, but the Gengar threatens it back, and then Blissey, depending on if she's bold or modest, can handle it to varying degrees. Gonna go for Boom. Mence is not the most common Boom target, so bit of an unusual sequence there. Wish and T-Bolt, sure. And that Wish is gonna land on Meta, so he's gonna have to get there. He needs raises. There's Mash. Gets one immediately. And he avoids the Para as well. Very good turn for Deez. That's exactly what he would have wanted. Mashing again is obviously correct. You want to go for the raise again. Doesn't get a second one, but still good shape. But of note, he's opting for the Lumberry Metagross rather than the Leftovers Agilagross, which could... Okay. Man, he went for the Boom there. Let me just do a little explaining before we all lose our minds. That's not a misclick, okay? He went for that as a deliberate, strategic choice. So the way that it works in tournament play, I don't know what they do on ladder these days, but the way that it works in tournament play is if, let's say that Boom had worked and the Protect didn't happen there, if the Boom had happened and he had killed the Swampert, it would draw the game. And in this case, a draw is obviously not an acceptable outcome. So they would have simply played a 4th game, which is what Deez was going for there. I don't know if I agree with that or not. He would have to... I mean, he must have calced it, obviously. I think I would have earthquaked there. I mean, here's the thing. So we don't know the last move for Swampert, so that's a big X factor. But as it stands, Ice Beam is just a 10% to freeze. If you do that and you get there, you get there. Nothing you can do. Earthquake would not kill the meta with any damage roll unless the Swampert had attack EVs, which it's not gonna. And then it just comes down to what the last move is. So Surfer Hydro Pump makes it interesting, especially because you would knock him into Torrent range. If you got him with an EQ and then he came back with Torrent Surf, Torrent Hydro Pump, again, depending on EVs, those may or may not kill. Hydro Pump always does in Torrent range, and then Surf, I think it depends on EVs. Where it really gets interesting is if the last move is neither of those things. What if the last move on Swampert is like Roar or Toxic, for example, or hell, even Refresh. But basically, if the last move is something other than Surf or Hydro Pump, if it were last move Roar, last move Toxic there, then in that instance, then the Boom was just a total punt, because you would Earthquake there, and I mean, as it turns out, he protected, but let's just pretend that he didn't. You would Earthquake there, you would get Earthquaked back, and pending a critical hit from Arctic, I guess you could go for the Ice Beam because the freeze is better odds than crit, either or, but let's just say that he Earthquakes back, so Meta goes for Earthquake, Swampert Earthquakes back, non-crit doesn't kill, and then Deez is in pretty good shape. I mean, obviously Arctic's going to protect on the following turn, but worst case, it just comes down to a damage roll situation, and Deez is probably heavily favored in that spot. He was trying to, so the Swampert had already protected on the previous turn, so for that reason, Deez looked at it and went, well, he's probably not going to protect again anyway, and even if he does go for protect, which I don't think he's going to, it's going to be a 50-50 that it even succeeds. So I guess that's how he justified that it was the right time to go for Explosion. I don't know that he needed to try to force a fourth game here. I feel like he was in a reasonable position. But I also don't think it was completely wild to do that because Deez may have felt and feared, and hell, he might be right because we never did see the last move. He might have thought that he was not in an advantageous position or a position of power. He might have felt that he was in trouble. He might have felt that had he just gone for EQ there, what actually happens is you get Torrent, Surfed, or Hydro Pump back, and you just die. And then we get into whole different levels of it. Well, what if you don't knock him into Torrent range? What if the mind game play is you hit him with Meteor Mash, and then when he comes back with Surf or Hydro Pump, it's not in Torrent range, so it doesn't kill you. If you get another raise with Mash, he's super boned. But what if you mash him and you don't get a raise? Do you play the Explosion mind game then? I don't know that. At the end of the day, I don't know if what Deezcastforms did was objectively right or objectively wrong. I think you can certainly get into the levels of it and make arguments both ways. It felt like a premature boom to me, but I don't absolutely hate it. I personally would have Earthquaked there, and that doesn't mean that I would have won the game. I might have Earthquaked and then gotten crit, or I might have Earthquaked and then just gotten Torrent, Surfed, or Hydro Pump back and died. Who knows? I would love to hear what you guys have to say. The series as a whole was close, and obviously I should reiterate the result here. It is going to be a 2-1 Arctic victory, putting up a match win for Timezone Warriors. But really harping on this Game 3 endgame, I don't know what the right play is, and I don't know. I mean, I do know what I would have done. I would have Earthquaked, but would that have worked out? I don't know. Tell me what you would have done. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. Anyhow, I have ranted too long on this one. There are way more games coming, so let me move along to the next set. But as always, I appreciate you guys watching. Thumbs up if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.